My mission is to help make our food system healthier, more sustainable and ethical. In a market where consumers are making more informed decisions about the food they buy, I believe that food businesses catering to these needs will be the most successful. I'm Michael Fox, CEO and co-founder of shiitake mushroom company Fable Food. For years, I've been obsessed with our food system. Welcome to my podcast where I talk shiitake with successful chefs, food industry executives and entrepreneurs to learn about what's led to their success in the food industry. Joining us today, we have an epic industry veteran, Greg Creed. Greg is the former CMO and CEO of Taco Bell, then was promoted to CEO of Yum Brands globally. That's KFC, Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, and the Habit Burger Grill. Greg was CMO of Taco Bell when in 2004 they launched the Mountain Dew Baja Blast. This LTO was so successful, it spawned an iconic new product, which still exists 20 years later, was Taco Bell's focus at their live Las Vegas party during the 2024 Super Bowl, and it's a product that will do over $1 billion in sales this year. That's a very epic LTO. In this episode, Greg shares how the team got to the deep consumer insights that led to this product. It's a fantastic story and an amazing learning, particularly as failing to get consumer insights like these right is what led to my first startup, Shoes of Prey, not succeeding. Greg also shares the stories behind avocado ranch dressing, the crunch wrap, and his thoughts on company culture, DEI, and ESG in the workplace. Greg's also the author of Red Marketing, which is one of my favorite marketing books of all time. I literally own 2 physical copies plus an audio copy in Audible. If you want to become a marketing pro, it's an outstanding book. You may also note our similar accents. Greg grew up in Brisbane, Australia, the same town I'm from. But enough of my raving about Greg. Let's get into the podcast. Greg Creed, welcome to the podcast.
It is great to be here, Michael.
So yeah, the Baja Blast is one of the most successful, iconic and enduring LTOs of this century. And you were the CMO at Taco Bell who brought it to market. I'd love to hear more about the lead up to this LTO. Yeah, what were the customer insights that led you to developing this product?
Yeah, I think the key is, as you said, it was an insight, not an observation. I think what often happens is people try to innovate against an observation, which is what's happening, and an insight is why it's happening, right? So I think too many people just sort of get to the what. So the what was that we noticed that in the restaurant business, we measure what's called drinks per transaction. How many drinks per 100 transactions. So a good number is like 72. If you can sell 72 drinks for every 100 transactions, life is good. And so we noticed that over time, with our late teens, I call them late teens, early 20s, that our drinks per transaction were declining. And as I jokingly say, if you went to business school, you'd sort of go, oh, I probably need to drop the price of the drinks. They're too expensive. So the observation was drinks were per transaction were declining amongst this very, targeted, group. What we dug deeper and found out was that what they were getting was a free drink at home. So basically, mum and dad had gone to the supermarket or the C-store, wherever, and they bought the 20-pack of Coke or the 20-pack of Pepsi or whatever, right? And so, in their brains, they're like, I've only got so much to spend, and why would I spend it on a drink that I can get at home? Because I'll just go home and get a free drink. So if you think about it, if we'd have discounted it, it wouldn't have worked because in their mind, it was free. It wasn't free for their mum and dad, but for them, it was free.
Yep.
And so the idea came that we needed to create a beverage that mum and dad couldn't buy in the supermarkets and take home. That was the sort of key insight, which was we needed to create something that is not available in supermarkets or no one else could buy it. The only place you could buy it would be Taco Bell.
How did you get that insight from that age bracket? Did you go and talk to those customers? How did you do that?
I call it the sort of like 5 whys deep, which is you sort of ask why. And when you ask the first why, you get you get a sort of a superficial answer, then you get a sort of less superficial answer, and then you keep going down. And I think if you dig deep enough, and you're right, you got to talk to the target audience. What we uncovered was, it was that they got a free drink, and so that was the beginning. Without knowing that, what we would have done is discounted the drinks because we would have thought, oh well, they're just a little bit expensive. So if we discount them, because what you get taught in business school, well, we'll just discount them, and then the number will grow, and even though we'll make less profit, we'll sell more, and all that sort of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so in this case, we really needed a proprietary beverage. So I remember sitting down with a guy called Joe Cagini, who was running the Taco Bell business for PepsiCo. And I said, "Hey, Joe, we need a proprietary beverage." And he's like, "Oh, Greg, we don't do those. Like, no one does those. You know, yeah, that's just not what happens, sort of thing, right?" And I was like, "No, no, no, we need one." And it was funny because his first response was, "Well, yeah, yeah, I don't think we can do this because, first of all, the Pepsi people wouldn't." I said, "We don't want to do it on Pepsi, by the way. We want to do it on Mountain Dew because at Taco Bell, we sell an awful lot of Mountain Dew. In fact, more Mountain Dew than Pepsi, right?" So the good news, I think what helped us was we didn't want their iconic brand, Pepsi. I think if we'd have sort of said, "Hey, we want a proprietary variant of Pepsi," they probably would have said no. And then there was lots of, and there was a guy called Dave Berwick who he was running Mountain Dew at the time, who went on to run Boston Beer Company. It's funny how this all happens, right? And he was running the Mountain Dew brand, and he's like, "Hell no." So everybody was like, "No, no, no." And in fact, I remember Joe saying to me, "Greg, you guys will be in this for about 6 weeks, like a normal LTO, and then you'll lose interest and it'll go away, and we're gonna have to do a hell of a lot of work." But I think, the insight drove us to this idea that no, we needed to create a beverage that you couldn't buy anywhere else. You could only buy it at Taco Bell. And if you think about it, the funny thing is we have no idea how to make beverages. We can create food because that's our expertise, but not beverages. And I think the one thing we did sort of know was that if you think about Mexican beverages, there's a lot of lime in them. If you like Corona beer, there's a lime in the top, and if you've ever been to Mexico, there's lines with all the drinks. So, our contribution was, hey, I think it's got to have more lime in it. I give the PepsiCo guys a lot of credit, right? Because they could easily just said no. Because if you think about it today, you think about like the relationships like Coke has with McDonald's. McDonald's does not have a proprietary beverage. And so, I give the PepsiCo team a hell of a lot of credit because they could have easily just said, look, we don't do it. It's not done in the industry. 1,000 reasons, here we go. Yeah. So basically, we sent a team. Liz Matthews was the chief food innovation lady. A guy called Will Minton on my marketing team. He basically ran the project. And we included our franchisees in this project because obviously we wanted the franchisees on board. And so a small team went up to Valhalla, not Valhalla in Norwegian, but Valhalla in New York, which is where PepsiCo create all their beverages. And the team went up there to sort of co-create this product. But the story of the name and the story of the color, that is also a great story in itself, which no one believes. And the good news is everyone thinks I tell tall stories, but my wife actually happened to be present for this one. So every year we used to go down to the Esperanza Resort, which is at the Baja Peninsula, the tip of the Baja Peninsula in Cabo San Lucas. And we would take the franchisees, the Pepsi team, and my team would go down there ostensibly to have a top to top meeting, but the top to top meeting probably lasted 3 hours, and then there was 2 days of golf. Anyway, if you think about it, where were we? We were on the Baja Peninsula, which is what it's called, right? We were at the Baja Peninsula, having a blast because we always had a blast with our franchisees. And the color, if you actually stand at the Esperanza and you watch the waves from the Sea of Cortez crash onto the beach, they are this turquoise color. And so I remember saying, I want it to be that color. And they're like, well, first of all, we don't make proprietary beverages. And secondly, no beverage is turquoise, right? I'm like, well, that's the color I want. That's the color I want.
How
And
many beers in were you at this point?
I don't know how many beers everybody was in, but I think, so we took photos of the turquoise that we were looking for. And yeah, so the name Baja Blast and the color turquoise literally came from the fact that we were at the Esperanza Resort and we were having a blast because we have great franchisees. We had great franchisees, still have great franchisees. The Pepsi relationship is incredibly special, as you can probably imagine. Yeah, and so we created this turquoise colored variant of Mountain Dew called Baja Blast, and it's just gone from strength to strength to strength. And in fact, I was talking to someone very senior at PepsiCo the other day, and they said that this year it'll do $1 billion in sales.
Wow, wow, wow.
$1 billion from one SKU.
Wow, that's
So as you
amazing.
said, it started out, I guess in my mind, it was never an LTO. I guess in a lot of people's minds, it was an LTO because it was sort of like, oh, well, just, most things we do off the core menu were, 6 weeks on, then it goes away. But given we sort of cracked this insight, I give Tom Wagner and Lynn Hemmons, they're the people that cracked the insight. I give them an awful lot of credit because they were the ones who really dug deep and sort of came up with, it needs to be proprietary. And so it was funny. So the brand grew and grew and grew and grew and grew. And after about 10 years, the PepsiCo people, I used to see Indra Nui, who was the CEO of PepsiCo every year. I'd go and visit her. And she was like, oh, we want to sell this in, in supermarkets and C-stores. And I'm like, no, because the whole objective is
That's
you
the
can't
point.
buy
Yeah.
it. But after 10 years, I think at the 10-year mark, we let them bottle, I don't know how many bottles, 20 million, who knows, 20 million bottles and cans. Because we also came to the realization that if you weren't a Taco Bell customer, you had never tried Mountain Dew Baja Blast, if you think about it, right? Because the only place you get it. So what we thought, and we agreed with the PepsiCo people, is that if we gave it broader exposure, then there may be people who really loved it. And then when we took it out of the supermarkets and C-stores, the only way to get it would be for them to go to Taco Bell. So so after 10 years, I don't know how many they bottled. All I know is it sold out like boom, it just like boom, it went. And then for the next 10 years, again, it went back to only being available at Taco Bell. And I've been long retired, but I think now you can buy it. You can buy it in bottles and cans. So I think it's available everywhere. And I knew we had a huge hit on our hands, not just because it was growing and growing and growing, but when I had people say to me, I really hate you. I'm like, well, why do you hate me? And they're like, because my kids can't drive and I have to now drive them to Taco Bell to get a drink.
Perfect.
It's perfect. I used to say, you may hate me, but I think that's a perfect answer, because you've now got to go to Taco Bell and get a drink. And so Mountain Dew Baja Blast, about 1/3 of all beverages sold at Taco Bell are Mountain Dew Baja Blast.
What did it do for your number? You said you were doing 72 drinks per 100 serves. Do you remember what that grew to?
I think it grew like some massive. Now I know 3 is not going to sound massive, but if you go from 72% to 75%, that's massive because obviously there's a lot of profitability in drinks. I think that was the number. Again, it was so long ago, but to me it was just, and it's interesting because a lot of other brands have tried now to do proprietary beverage. You can see it all over the place. You see, and yet none of them have really worked. And I think the answer is because they sort of copied the observation, oh, well, Taco Bell has a proprietary beverage, we should have one too. They didn't actually understand the insight of that it was for free. And then I don't think what they've done is, I don't think they've made that variant sort of integral to the brand identity. Like Baja Blast in a turquoise color is pretty integral to Taco Bell, right? And then that it has more lime. So it wasn't like, oh well, just throw cinnamon in, or I don't know, some other flavor is popular. We didn't go with what was popular. We created a beverage that literally everyone felt could only belong at Taco Bell, right? And I think when I look at what other people try to do with proprietary beverages, I think they've missed the key insight, and then they've forgotten that it has to be almost like it was born by the brand. Not, what I mean? It was almost like, oh, this makes obvious sense because it could only be at Taco Bell or could only be at wherever. And then obviously you got to have a partner like PepsiCo that'll do it for you. And many years ago, I don't know again how many. We obviously every 10 years or so we pitch the beverage business, right? Basically Coke versus Pepsi. And I remember Muhtar Kent and Sandy Douglas were the CEO and COO of Coke, and I went to Atlanta thinking God would strike me down because, having been a PepsiCo employee before, I thought, oh, someone will strike me for being in this building. And I remember having a discussion with them, and I said to them, would you guys ever make a proprietary beverage? Right? And the answer was pretty much no. And I was like, well, then don't try to win the Taco Bell business because you're not going to win it. There's no way Taco Bell is going to walk away from Mountain Dew Baja Blast, right? And so in a sense, it's interesting that product also, strengthens the relationship between two companies. And it's my belief that if we hadn't done Mountain Dew Baja Blast and it hadn't been successful, we would never have done Doritos Locos Tacos. Because I think what the Mountain Dew Baja Blast proved to everyone at PepsiCo is we were great brand stewards, even of their own brand, right? We didn't abuse their brand to grow our brand. We basically did something that both Mountain Dew benefited from and obviously Taco Bell benefited from. And I think that if we had not sort of put that in place, then asking them for the Dorito, now we'd like to play with your Doritos brand, the answer probably would have been pound sand, right? But yeah. I think because we had demonstrated that we had done everything to build their brand and nothing to distract from their brand, I think that gave them the confidence to then play with us when it came to Doritos Locos Tacos. So not only was Mountain Dew Baja Blast incredibly important. Not only is it now $1 billion brand, it was also the cornerstone for us, having a discussion. If you think about it, we launched Mountain Dew Baja Blast in 2004, and we started the Doritos project in 2009. And so, without that, there's no way they would have entertained, oh, yeah, well, we'll just let you play around with our Doritos brand. Because even with the Doritos Locos Tacos, they were worried that they would sell less Doritos because we were selling so many tacos made of Doritos, right? Nacho cheese Doritos. It's been an incredible success in its own right. I don't think anyone's remotely matched it. I don't think there isn't another, brand or beverage out there, or a proprietary beverage that comes even close. And now, of course, they've got a hard seltzer version, which, funny enough, Boston Beer Company, run by Dave Berwick, he's retired now, but the Boston Beer Company, they actually bottle the Taco Bell Baja Blast hard seltzer. And then obviously we turned it into a freeze. And then this year, for the 20th anniversary, they turned it into a gelato.
Oh, wow.
A Mountain
And
Dew.
that was, and I think it was like featured at the Super Bowl last year.
Yeah. So a Mountain Dew Baja Blast gelato, which is that same turquoise green. And, I think it's spawned lots of ideas. I think other people have tried to copy it, but no one has even, I think, come remotely close to, with PepsiCo. So it was a great team effort. Our franchisees had to be on board, which they were. And as I said, a number of them even went to Valhalla and were a part of the tasting process. You can imagine how much got drunk in the development of this project, right? Because you don't sort of crack it on day one. And I think it's a beverage that you probably either like or don't like, which I also like, right? One of the key things for me is what you don't want to do is be indifferent. You don't want people to say, oh, that's okay. I would rather people go, it's funny, like I really love Mountain Dew Bar. I mean, I eat Taco Bell at least once a week, and I always have a large Mountain Dew Baja Blast. And now that it's in cans, I've actually got cans in my little office refrigerator here. I should have got one out. I'll go and get one. Hang on a sec.
Yeah, do it.
So, here it is, right? Here it is.
Amazing. Wow. 20 years later.
20 years later, here it is in cans. And so I think it's just been, and then as I said, it was I'm going to have some now because
I'm jealous. I should have got some too.
Oh, now you got to get it, right? So
yeah, it's a fail on my part.
It's awesome. Now, to be fair, my wife doesn't really like it at all, but she doesn't drink a lot of soft drink, to be honest. And it's just so unique. There's nothing else that tastes like it. There's nothing else that looks like it. There are no other turquoise cans. There are no other turquoise beverages.
The polarizing element of it is part of its draw, you think? Yeah, people either love it or...
Yeah, I think what makes it distinctive. And we actually developed it to be eaten in conjunction with our food. So when the franchisees and Liz Matthews and Will Mitten and they all went up to Valhalla, we basically fed them all of our menu. So it's like a sommelier, right? Which was like, create us a beverage that goes with our food. It was truly designed to go with our Mexican-inspired food. It wasn't like, I was just going to create a beverage. We literally said,
you're tasting it with the food,
we want it to complement. So when you eat the food and you drink the drink, you go, yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. And I think that was a key part to it was we could have sent people off to create a beverage, and it could have even been turquoise. But it was specifically designed. And so even when we were tasting it, as we got to taste, we tried, oh, what about more of this and that sort of stuff. We always did it eating it with our food. So this is like $1 billion wine.
in a Mountain Dew form.
I don't think there's probably not many wines that do $1 billion in sales, I guess.
No. Maybe Yellowtail from Australia, but that might be about it.
And so, when you tell people, we're like the sommeliers of fast food, everyone just laughs at us, right? They're like, that may be going just a little too far, but so like I love this, like there's the wave. You can't even see it. There's the wave.
Yeah.
It's all happening anyway.
That's awesome.
So that's the story. And as I said, I also think it helped us do Mountain Dew Bar. Helped us do the Doritos Locos Taco because there's no way they would have given us the Doritos brand if we'd have just knocked on the door one day and said, "Hey, we'd like to make a taco out of a Doritos."
Just rewinding to I think you called it the 5 whys, like delving in and digging into the whys. Like how did you and your team do that? Like what are the sort of insights, techniques that you use to do that?
We used to have two things. We obviously did a lot of consumer research, but we also had a lot of panels. So we're in Orange County, California, and so we would have basically groups of panels where whether they be teenagers or 20s or 30s, who would just come in on a regular basis, and we basically would talk to them. So there was this sort of regular content. Now you could argue they were people in the community, but Taco Bell is a very sort of Southern California brand. I mean, that it was, Glenn Bell launched it in Downey, California. Its roots are in Southern California. So, we sort of never went to New York to get insights. It was more fun. And it was funny because we even had agency people who, came from New York, and they really couldn't write great creative for Taco Bell. You almost had to understand what this Orange County culture was like. Anyway, so we did the classic consumer insights. We did research groups. We were always testing ideas. We're always talking to customers. I mean, at our height, we were probably developing like 300 concepts a year. What I loved about Taco Bell, it's like an innovation machine. When people say, well, how do you create like Mountain Dew Baja Blast and Doritos Locos Tacos and all that? I said, well, you don't do it between 2 and 4 on a Thursday afternoon. That's just not how it happens. You have to have a culture across the entire organization of driving for insights, not observations. So that was one of the keys was to, I think too many businesses, I see things now as I, just being in retirement, I go, oh, that's just an observation. Someone observed something, and now and a lot of people call an observation an insight. Oh, I had an insight. I'm like, no, you didn't. You had an observation.
What's the how do you define the difference between those two?
I think the difference is really simple. An observation is what's going on, and an insight is why is it going on.
Yeah.
So
okay.
the observation was we're selling less drinks. The insight was because they get
it free at home. Yeah.
And I think if you innovate around an observation, it is nowhere near as powerful as if you insight around as you innovate around an insight. And I think one of the challenges in the whole industry right now, in the fast food industry, is everyone's mired in this value play, right? It's sort of like everyone's playing cheap and nasty, and how low can we go? Which, by the way, I'm sure the franchisees hate. I'm sure the customers love it, but the franchisees hate it. I guess what I see going on is there's a lack of innovation. Like, where is the Mountain Dew Baja Blast? Where are the Doritos Loco Tacos? And I don't just mean from Taco Bell. I mean, I think the best story, if you think about it, we've never discounted our beverages because we've got a proprietary beverage that everybody wants. So, it's not like, oh, well, when McDonald's used to do, a dollar drink for summer, we never did that at Taco Bell. We never discounted our beverages. And if you fast forward to the Doritos Locos Taco, when we were developing that with our friends at Frito-Lay and testing it, we originally tested it at a 20-cent premium to a regular taco. So I think regular tacos were, well, we'll just call it 99 cents to keep it simple. So we tested it at $1.19. And the sales growth in the test market in Toledo was like 28%, which is unbelievable in a category that grows like 3%.
So like store like-for-like sales or taco like-for-like sales?
No, that was the stores in Toledo like-for-like, 12 months like-for-like, 28%.
Wow.
So we actually thought, well, hang on a minute. What if we charged 30 cents more and we wouldn't get 28% growth, but hell, we'd get another 10 cents, right? And so if you think about, I think so we ended up launching it at 30 cents more. The Doritos Locos Taco with the product and the little pouch it sort of came in, anyway, long story about that, cost 4 cents more. We made 26 cents more profit out of that 30 cents. And the most telling thing was people said, I haven't been to Taco Bell in 10 years, but I had to have it, right? And I think what's missing now is, if it was launched now, it would still be incredibly successful, even though people are watching their pennies, because it is such a breakthrough product. And here's a breakthrough product. I remember we presented it to the board, and so we presented the test market results, which were plus 28, and we were 20 cents. We're going to charge 30 cents. And Ken Langone, who was a founder of Home Depot, who was on the board, goes, so Greg, let me get this right. We're going to charge 30 cents more, and we're going to keep 26 cents. I said, absolutely, Ken. He's like, I won't even repeat what he said because you couldn't put it on a podcast. But there were F-bombs all over the place. And I just don't see that innovation happening today. And if you think about it, this is $1 billion brand.
A couple of things. What was the insight that led you to do the Doritos Locos Tacos?
Well, that one actually, funnily enough, didn't so much come from an insight. It came from, I realized in 2012, so we were back in 2008, 2009, and I realized in 2012 we were going to turn 50. Taco Bell, in sort of March 1962, Glenn Bell had started Taco Bell, right? And I thought, well, the last thing we can do is have a 50th birthday celebration because we're meant to be, young and hip and trendy, and you don't turn 50, right? So I sort of said to the team, I said to them, hey, we need an iconic product for our 50th birthday. And my brief to them was it has to be a taco because I said we'd done a lot of work around, crunch wraps and burritos and quesadillas and bowl. I said, but we're not Burrito Bell, we're not Crunch Wrap Bell, we're Taco Bell. And to give the team credit, all I said was, I want an iconic product for our 50th birthday, and it has to be a taco. And I give the team at Taco Bell and the team at Frito-Lay credit for, coming up with the idea of let's make a taco out of Doritos, which is not as easy as it sounds. It sounds very easy. And I remember we developed concepts. We did the concept development and testing in 2009. And the concepts just scored, they were scoring off. I've never seen scores as high, right? I mean, when you do 300 concept scores a year and you get one like off the charts, you go, I think we've got a big idea. I remember we had a meeting in January of 2010 at Frito-Lay and up in Plano, and Al Carey was the CEO of Frito-Lay. And to basically try to make one, and this is funny because Al's on the board of Home Depot. They went to Home Depot, they bought a spray paint gun, and they got the seasoning for Doritos, mixed it up, and sort of fried a Taco Bell shell and sort of sprayed on the seasoning. It was a bit of a Frankenstein, to be honest. But we got the idea that it was also a very easy idea to communicate. This shell was made out of Doritos. So we didn't have to we knew it was a great concept. We knew it was going to be easy to explain. The shell's made out of Doritos. The problem was we had to make it because Doritos are flat. They're chips, right? They're corn chips. And this thing has to bend. And so there was a lot of work that was done by the Frito-Lay team and a guy called Stephen Gomez who worked at Taco Bell. And he worked with the team. And there was a lot of work done to be able to bend this thing without it snapping. Because so we had to basically, I don't know. I think it's like we had to get more moisture into the formula somehow in order to enable it to bend. And so that wasn't easy. And then getting the seasoning on, they had to build 4 lines, would you like 4 lines? They probably spent like $15 or $16 million in making these lines. And then what they realized was they had to enclose them at the end because all this seasoning spraying around was getting in people's eyes and noses, and it was a massive irritant. So it took us a while. So 2009, we developed the concept, tested the concept. 2010, we developed the product and commercialized the product. So we had to develop it and commercialize it. And that was probably the hardest thing. And then in April of 2011, we did a test market in Toledo, got the 28%, sales growth, which was like unheard of. And at a 20 cents from premium. And then we decided we'd take a lower number at 30 cents because that was going to be more successful. So, and I think that's what's missing today. I don't see, like, where's the next Mountain Dew Baja Blast? Where's the next Doritos Locos Taco? And I don't mean it. I said I'm not picking on Taco Bell. I'm just saying I just don't see that sort of innovation occurring in the marketplace. And in the absence of innovation, everyone's discounting because if I don't have another reason to go except price, well, then price becomes my only reason.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think that innovation's not happening?
I think what Taco Bell had, because if you think about it, we launched quesadillas in 2001, Crunch Wrap, I think in 2003, burritos that were grilled in 2002, Mountain Dew Baja Blast in 2004, Doritos Locos Tacos in 2012. Basically, it's a mindset of we are an innovation machine. I used to jokingly say that Taco Bell is a marketing company that happens to sell food. we're not a tech company, and we're not arguably even a food company. What we are is a marketing machine. And I think everyone was excited and energized by being this innovation machine, right? Everyone loved to innovate, and so in that sense, as I said, it's not like Thursday afternoons, everyone stopped work for 2 hours and we decided to innovate. There was always ideas. And as I said, this guy, Tom Wagner and Lynn Hemmings, they were concept testing probably 300 ideas a year. I mean, some of them are crap, obviously. How many companies test 300 concepts a year? I doubt even Procter & Gamble probably tests 300 concepts a year. And so it was this forever innovation machine. We also understood really clearly what the Taco Bell brand stands for. And I'll give you a good example of that. So one of the cornerstones of Taco Bell is this idea that it is Mexican inspired. When I first got to Taco Bell in 2001, I said to people, what is Taco Bell? And everyone could tell me what it wasn't. They couldn't tell me what it was, right? So we came up with this idea, this phrase, Mexican inspired, which I think is a perfect phrase to describe Taco Bell. It's not authentic. We don't try to be authentic. No one thinks we're authentic, but it's sort of, we're inspired by Mexican foods and flavors and tastes and textures and all that sort of stuff. And so anyway, one year we used to have, over the summer, we would have MBA students, finance and marketing students from USC, UCLA, and UCI. They were the three big schools, near us. And I remember a young woman gave a presentation, and it was a presentation about we should add ranch dressing to the menu at Taco Bell, right? So she was like, "Oh, you should know." And so she had all these graphs, and everything was like everyone's eating more ranch dressing, and in the Midwest, people put pizzas in there. I mean, it's like, anyway. The joke was, what she didn't know. Well, the joke was, as an Australian, I absolutely hate ranch dressing. I think it tastes terrible. So the Taco Bell people knew I hated ranch dressing personally. He obviously didn't know this. And she gives this presentation after 20 minutes, and the numbers are compelling, right? They're all this way. And I go, "No, we're not doing it." And so all the Taco Bell people think Greg's just being funny because he hates ranch dressing. And I said, "No, I'm not doing it because it's not Mexican inspired." And so to give her credit, they went away and they came up with avocado ranch dressing, which is Mexican inspired. And so what I also see going on in the industry, or just in business, is there's a trend. People jump on the trend, but they don't jump on the trend to make it consistent with their brand image, their brand essence, right? So they go, "Oh, well, ranch dressing's growing. Well, we'll put ranch dressing on the Taco Bell menu, right?" And that's a really bad answer. And I think, again, then having this discipline to say, yeah, I get, and let's be honest, avocado ranch dressing pretty much tastes like ranch dressing, but it's got a little green swirl. And it's also called avocado ranch dressing, right? And I think that a lot of people, they just miss that. And they go, "Oh, well, ranch dressing is popular. We'll stick ranch dressing on our menu." And I think that dilutes what your brand stands for. Like, you think about Taco Bell. The two biggest selling items in fast food are hamburgers and chicken sandwiches, and we don't sell them. Now, could we sell them? Of course we can sell them. It's not that hard to make a hamburger or a chicken sandwich. But just because you can doesn't mean you should, right? And I think if you've got discipline around what your brand stands for, it makes sense that you don't do hamburgers and you don't do chicken sandwiches. And I also said, one day, this sort of came to bite me. I said, we don't do salads, right? I said, you'll never see a bun or a salad at Taco Bell. And everyone goes, "Oh, well, you people need to eat healthy." I'm not saying they shouldn't eat healthy. I'm not saying they can't eat healthy at Taco Bell, but why would we make a salad, right? I mean, go to a salad place if you want a salad. Just don't come to Taco Bell. And I see too many brands that jump on everything that's occurring. "Oh, we got to have ranch dressing. Oh, we got to have a salad. Oh, we got to have a whatever." And all of a sudden, they dilute what the brand stands for. And at the end of the day, it stands for nothing. It absolutely has no clarity. I think everything that belongs on Taco Bell's menu, people go, "Yep, that belongs on that menu. I understand why it's on that menu." The one screw up, I guess my biggest screw up, was when everyone was counting calories and everyone had to have healthy food and I wasn't going to do a salad. We tried a thing called the drive-through diet. So we had a young lady who had eaten a lot of Taco Bell, almost like a Jared story. She had lost a lot of weight. And then we thought, well, we're not just going to sort of do a weight loss thing. So we called it the drive-through diet. That was in hindsight, that was a very stupid idea. She was a lovely lady. She did lose a lot of weight, and we got to know her and all that. But no one comes to Taco Bell for sort of what you would call diet food. You also have to learn by your mistakes. That was probably one of my that was one of my good all-time classics. Certainly for a guy who has never looked at a label in my life. In fact, I'm looking at this. I just don't look at labels. I eat for taste. And I think what happens is people just don't understand the true essence of their brand. They do things. I'm not suggesting that ranch dressing shouldn't have been on the menu, but what I loved is it became avocado ranch dressing.
Do you remember the name of the intern who put that together and had that insight?
I honestly don't. That is very terrible of me. It was a long time ago. But what I give it credit for, because a lot of people could have said, well, he's a what, because he's the CEO and he doesn't like it. But they went away and give him credit, created avocado ranch dressing.
That's
So
awesome.
I think she ended up working for us. I'm pretty sure we offered her a job and she ended up working for us. But this is a long, long time ago, and I'm old, so I forget.
No. That's all
But
right.
it's a great story because too many people just jump on trends and they don't jump on the trend and work out how to express it within their brand essence.
One thing I love about when chatting to you always give credit to lots of other people on your team, and I know you do work in the sort of corporate culture space. Yeah, I'd love to hear how you sort of think about that.
Well, if you think about it, they do all the work, right? I mean, the more senior you become, the less work you do. I mean, the less what you would call observable work you do. And everyone's got their skill set. And, I'm not good at a lot of things. Like, I am a terrible process person. I appreciate process. And I know in big organizations you have to have process, but I am the last person you would ever ask to, like, run the train. I'm not good at running the train. I may be good at saying where the train needs to go to the next stop, but I'm not good at running it, right? And so I think if you're very honest with yourself about what you're not good at, then you will surround yourself with people who have the skills that you don't. And I think that's critically important. And then at a higher order, though, I'm a huge believer in this idea that culture fuels results, and that the model you get taught in business school is strategy, structure, culture. That's sort of what you get taught, right? Write the strategy, work out the structure, and then, in your spare time, worry about culture. I think they're the right ingredients, just in the wrong order. I think it's culture, strategy, structure. And the reason I believe that's important is there are two cultures you have to write your strategy within. One is the external culture, what's happening in society, and the other is what's happening. What is the culture of your organization? So otherwise, you could write a intellectually brilliant strategy, but there is no way in hell you're going to execute it if it's not consistent with what's going on in society, and it's not essentially doable by your organization. And so I think culture fuels results. I think that, and even things like DEI and ESG, which have come under a lot of pressure lately, right? There's a lot of pressure. I think the problem is that the naysayers turned it into, check the box, right? We're reducing carbon output. We've got more women in positions. We've got more people of color. Checking the box. No, if it has to be DEI fuels results, ESG fuels results. If it's not fueling results, then arguably not even doing it right. So I'm a big believer in DEI, ESG. I'm a huge believer in culture, but at the same time, you have to do it in a way where that drives the business performance. Otherwise, the naysayers go, well, you're just putting people in, boxes, checking boxes, and if the business doesn't improve, right? And the reason we should be doing all of these things is A, because they're the right thing to do, and B, if you do them really well, they drive performance. And ultimately, as the CEO of an organization, your job is to drive performance. So, yeah, I think that it is. I think it's the right thing to do to recognize like the people that we spoke about, because they did all the hard work. And Doritos Loco Taco was not my idea. I did not come up with the idea. I may have given them a brief that said, create an iconic taco for our 50th, birthday. And then I turned around and walked away. So that's my future. Right? I did not come up with the idea it should be Dorito, all that sort of stuff. And even on Mountain Dew Baja Blast, Tom Wagner came up with the insight of, they're getting a free drink. We need to create a proprietary beverage. I didn't just wake up and go, oh, wow, we need Mountain Dew Baja Blast. That's not how it worked, right? And so I am a huge believer in culture. And I think that there's a lot of people in a business that what I call live the culture. And so living the culture is sort of like, someone who lives the culture in an organ, they'll make critical decisions. They will develop bold ideas. They'll hold themselves personally accountable. They'll recognize the team. But leading the culture is really, I think, everyone's responsibility, right? Because otherwise it's like, I've just gotten a free ride. Living the culture is a free ride. And I think the difference between someone who leads the culture, they don't just make critical decisions, they empower the organization to make bold decisions. They champion bold ideas. You don't have to have the ideas. I think a lot of people, when you say innovation, everyone goes, "Oh, I'm not very innovative," right? I mean, a lot of people in the organization will go, "Oh my God, I'm not innovative." At one stage early in the Taco Bell life, when we were there, it was about, we were trying to make it more portable, make the food more portable, because it particularly wasn't particularly portable, right? And people were eating in the cars. And so the insight was, we wanted them to make the classic taste of Taco Bell more portable. Pretty simple, the classic taste of Taco Bell more portable. So I was the chief marketing officer again. One day, a lady called Lois Carson, who's in the food innovation team, phones me up and says, "Hey, I've got this idea. Can you come down and have a look at it?" So I go down to the test kitchen, and she has created what is essentially the crunch wrap, hexagon. And if you think about what's in a crunch wrap, it is the classic taste of Taco Bell. It's ground beef and lettuce and tomato and sour cream and cheese and blah blah blah. And so she had folded it into this hexagon, therefore had made it portable because she had also grilled it right. So I'm like, holy hell, this is like, Jesus, this is fantastic. And so I said to her, like, when did you have this idea? Thinking she was going to say, in the shower this morning or driving to work this morning. And she goes, "Oh, you're the 5th CMO I've showed it to."
Huh. Wow.
And so it's a great story because people go, "Oh, I did not invent Crunchwrap. Lois Carson invented Crunchwrap. My role was to champion Crunchwrap where 4 other CMOs had not championed it." And so I think
because you had that insight that people
because
needed.
we had the thing about, we wanted to make the classic taste of Taco Bell more portable.
Portable, yeah.
But I think a lot of people think, "Oh my God, I'm not innovative." And maybe your job isn't to be Lois Carson. Maybe your job is to champion someone else's ideas. And so I think people that lead the culture, they can champion others' ideas. It doesn't have to be, "I created the idea." And I think in a lot of organizations is like, "Well, I need to have the idea." No, you don't. Maybe you need maybe you're in a position of power, that someone here creates an idea and you use your power. I don't mean like, authoritarian power, but you use your position to champion their idea through the organization. And so that's why I think it's important to give credit, because Lois Carson invented Crunchwrap. A guy called Steve Gomez, he basically, worked with Frito-Lay to make Doritos Locos Tacos. Liz Matthews, pretty much with the franchisees and with others, helped create Mountain Dew Baja Blast. And they deserve to get credit because it's their work. It's that simple.
And the culture of innovation that you talked about, that you had at Taco Bell, and now when you look at the industry, doesn't seem to be there. What were some of the things that helped drive that culture of innovation in the organization?
I think, first of all, we didn't pretend to innovate, on Thursday afternoons. It was sort of like we wanted to be an innovation machine. I think the other thing is, it's about the questions you ask. If you think about it, I always used to say to people, most people go to a meeting, and when they go to a meeting, they almost go prepared to answer the questions they know they're going to get asked. So if you go to a meeting, you're pretty much like, "Oh, Billy or Mary are going to ask me these questions and I need to know the answer." Very few people go to a meeting actually having thought about, well, what question am I going to ask in the meeting? And so we used to sit around. The best example is, we were sitting around one day, just like shooting the breeze. I don't even remember in what circumstances, too long ago. And we were like, what is it that we like to eat that we'd like to drink? So that was just a question, right? What is it that we like to eat that we'd like to drink? And the answer came candy, or in Australian term, lollies, right? And so the idea of Starburst Freeze came from that question of, to be fair, we used to have food and candy and laying around like at Taco Bell, like it was. In fact, David Novak, who was my boss, was like, "We need to ease up on how much candy is laying around this place." We had Snickers and Mars bar. I mean, it was like it was like a kid in a candy store. It was sort of like Taco Bell. Anyway, so I happened to run into I was at a conference and I ran into the Mars people who own Starburst, right? And I said, "Hey, we'd like to do a Starburst Freeze." And they go, "We don't make beverages." I'm like, "Yeah, I know you don't, but we'd like to use your brand to make." Anyway, what was interesting there then was, so they agreed, and they were like, "Oh, the number one selling is this sort of like cherry flavor, like a reddish cherry flavor." And we were like, yeah, that doesn't look that exciting. The next one was pink. So the pink one, again, who else sells a pink drink? No one. Who else sells a turquoise drink? No one, except Taco Bell. So the team went down, I give them credit. So we were mucking around with colors, and they went down to the beach at Laguna Beach, and they stuck like a clear cup with like a plum color drink in it, and a clear cup with like a pink drink, like a pink lemonade drink in it, just to see. And the pink one just was 1,000 times better on. So we went back to Starburst and we said, look, as much as plum is the whatever, plum, cherry, whatever is the number one flavor, we want to go with pink. So we went with pink. It was our first launch where we only used social media. We didn't use television. Again, I don't know what year it was. I can't remember when we did it. But so it had to be after 2010, 11 when social, when phones and all that sort of stuff. And we sold like 3 times the volume we expected to sell. Because again, we took a known brand name, Starburst, like we had taken a known brand name, Mountain Dew, like we had taken a known brand, Doritos, and we basically replicated it in a form that made sense in a Mexican-inspired Taco Bell.
Yeah, what was the Mexican-inspired link with that?
That's a very good question. We actually played around with could we do something to it, and then we thought, well, we can't because it's Starburst, right? But the pink, if you think about the colors of Mexico, they are bright, right? And so our I think what we sort of convinced ourselves because we couldn't call it L Starburst just to make it because
Right.
Starburst wouldn't have like that.
Yeah.
I think what we decided was that the pink color and the vibrancy of the color was sort of what was the Mexican inspired part of that project. And so whether we were right or wrong, I'm not sure, but we convinced ourselves that no one else was doing pink, and pink was very bright and it was colorful, and Mexico is very bright and colorful and energetic, and so that's how we did it. So all of these stories I love because they, it's not just like we woke up one day and tossed a coin and decided to do this stuff. And I think a lot of people think that's what innovation is. No, we have a true understanding of what the brand stands for, this idea of Mexican inspired, this idea of, making the classic taste more portable, and then partnering with brands that are equally iconic. Mountain Dew, Starburst, and Doritos. They are iconic brands, and then doing the right thing by those brands and not, bastardizing those brands, which you could. And then if you did, no one would ever partner with you again, right?
What would be your advice to say a 10 to 50 door sort of premium QSR chain that's someone who owns one of those chains or a CMO at one of those chains that's listening to this? What would be your advice to them on how they can adapt some of this?
It's funny. I learned my craft at Unilever, and there was a thing called the just right score, which was, people say, oh, that's just right. I call it the just wrong score. In hindsight, when I was learning it, I was like, oh, it's the just right score. You want to get a score where, most people love it and no one hates it, and maybe some people love it, but no one hates it. It's sort of just right. I now, in hindsight, call it the just wrong score because I actually do want you to either love it or hate it.
Yeah.
And I
That's
think
what makes it interesting and not beige.
Yeah, not beige. And so I think that, if you're a 10 to 50, whoever you are, you want to create a concept and the food and the beverages to, there are a lot of people who don't like Taco Bell. That's okay. There's just a lot more that happen to love it. But I don't think anyone's indifferent. I think if you said to people, what do you think about Taco Bell? They'll either go, oh God, I hate that. Or they'll go, oh my God, I love it, right? And I think even again, I'm going back in time, but McDonald's sort of had a pretty soft patch there for 5 or 6 years. And I think it was because they became beige. We would do research and people would go, yeah, there's nothing wrong with McDonald's. Yeah, it's okay. But and it's not bad. It's not great. It's okay. And no one goes to it's okay. That's not a brand. No one goes to okay. You want to go. That's why, as I said, be really clear about what you do. Take Chipotle. They don't do tacos. I love it. They do bowls and burritos and quesadillas. Basically, bowls and burritos. That's basically what they do, right? And I'm sure you could argue, well, why don't you sell tacos? Because the world sells tacos. And the answer is because we do bowls and burritos. And you think about the brands that are really clear about what they stand for, and the brands that do the, avocado ranch dressing and not just ranch dressing, they're the ones that are being incredibly successful. it's the brands that try to be all things to all people. Like when we launched I was no longer the CEO at Taco Bell. I was running Yum, but when we launched nacho fries at Taco Bell, which we had tried 1,000 times to launch fries, and then so I give them credit, they came up with nacho fries, which was brilliant. The real brilliance was you don't get ketchup. It's the only concept in the world where you cannot get ketchup at when you get
With your
fries.
fries.
Yeah, we give you nacho cheese because
Yeah.
we are Mexican inspired.
Mm.
And it would have been so easy. In fact, we made an ad. We made an ad about the ketchup packet being upset because it couldn't get into the Taco Bell restaurant. It's sort of standing at the window, the little sauce packet, and it's crying because it can't get let in right. And so it would have been so easy for everyone to say, well, of course, well, when you get fries, you have to have ketchup. Yeah, well, guess where? One place in the entire world, Taco Bell. And that makes you distinctive. So, I think sometimes people just go, oh, well, there's fries, oh, you got to have ketchup. Or, well, shit, everyone's selling salads. We got to have a salad. No, you don't. No, you don't. I'm sure, as I said, Chipotle's probably been told, oh, you should sell tacos. No, you shouldn't. And if you're going to do it, how do you do it in a Chipotle way, right? So, what I don't see is enough clarity of thought around what brands stand for these days. Maybe I'm just old, but I don't see it. And then I don't see activity and action consistent with that clarity of what the brand stands for, the brand essence. And I think a lot of brands don't have clarity around their brand essence, what their brand ultimately stands for. And I don't think a lot of employees and organizations could, in very short sentences like Mexican inspired, contrast the taste, textures, temperatures, and aromas, or, the classic taste made more portable. I don't think many organizations could do that. And that's what I love about Taco Bell in particular is, yeah, there's no ketchup with the fries. So not adding something actually helped make it distinctive.
Are there any brands that you see that are doing it well at the moment?
This is going to shock everybody. One of the brands that I admired, particularly during COVID, was Match.com. Did you ever see that work where the devil? Okay, it's just brilliant. If you the good news is you just met my wife. We've been married for 43 years, so I'm not on any of these whatever sites. But anyway, if you think about them, they are all about, oh, we found 10 people and 5 of them got married. It's all lovey-dovey and sweet and all that sort of stuff, right? Match.com during COVID, you got to look it up. You got to find these ads. They basically had a woman who matched with the devil because we were living in hellish times, right? It is brilliant. Like everyone else is sort of schmaltzy and sweet, and everyone's nice, and he was the devil, and she was 2020. That was her name, right? Her handle or whatever. And so go look it up. You'll show it to people, put it on the podcast because it is brilliant. It is absolutely brilliant. And to me, it's incredibly distinctive because everyone else is schmaltzy, and here you've got the devil. But it was also, go back, remember I said about culture and strategy? The time of COVID, culture it was hell on earth, right? That's what everyone was saying. The external culture was it's hell on earth. And they tapped into that brilliantly by bringing the devil.
How does that tie into their goals or mission of wanting to help you find the right partner? How did they tie that back in?
Well, I think because they went to the extreme, right?
Yeah.
And they made themselves distinctive. Whereas, I don't even know who the other brands are, but everyone else is like, oh yeah, we match people and they do what, they all get married, they live happily ever after, whatever the story. It's beige because everyone does the same thing. And yet it's not distinctive. Yet the devil in 2020 was incredibly distinct. I don't know what
relevant and distinctive.
Yeah. So culturally relevant, incredibly distinctive, brilliantly written. I don't even know who the hell created it, but you need to go find it, and you need, if you can, put it on the podcast because I think it's some of the best advertising. I love the Dos Equis the beer, which is the most interesting man in the world. If you think about beer is pretty much, well, we pour this into this and it's an amber color and it's got a head and we drink it. Well, that's like beer advertising. And yet Dos Equis was sort of like this older guy with a beard, and he was the most interesting man in the world. And he does all these, stupidly interesting things. And it was sort of like, yeah, because everyone else is showing you this, pouring into a glass and drinking. Well, they don't even show you drinking it. Whereas Dos Equis was, well, who doesn't want to be more interesting? Do you want to be one of the boys or do you want to be more interesting? Easy answer. I want to be considered more interesting. So again, that's another great case of a brand. I don't even drink beer, but I must be the only Australian that doesn't drink beer. But that the Dos Equis, the most interesting man in the world campaign, which you need to look that up as well, and show everybody. That to me is another great example of they understand who the brand is, and they have a distinct positioning compared to everyone else, which is everyone else is just about you see the flavor or taste or the hops come from Germany, whatever the hell it is, but it isn't about the fact that if I want to be considered more interesting, I'm going to drink this beer. I love brands that essentially are the anti of whatever else is going on. My last one at Taco Bell was we decided we would get into late night. So my joke has always been that the food was created for late night. We just happened to sell it the rest of the day. And I know we got to go soon. And so there's a guy called Jeff Fox who came up with the idea of fourth meal, because everybody else had a late night program. McDonald's had a late night program. Wendy's had a late night program. Burger, everyone was called late night. And Jeff came into me one day and he goes, I think we should call it fourth meal. I'm like, genius, right? And so fourth meal has almost become part of the vernacular. So instead of saying, and I think Taco Bell probably owns late night as a concept, right? Also, the food is also appropriate for late night. But the idea that we're the fourth meal brand, not the late night brand. And so, I give Jeff Fox a lot of credit because, again, doing late night, we could have just been the 27th brand to do late night, but we were the only brand that's ever done fourth meal. And I think it's having that clarity and having people who don't want to be beige.
It's kind of culturally relevant. It's relevant to what Taco Bell's food is. It's distinctive because you've got a unique take on it. Yeah. Fits with your brand framework.
So it's not even an idea that just you go, well, we just stuck a weird idea. It's an idea that when you hear fourth meal, you go, oh, that belongs at Taco Bell, right? Because it's also a clever idea. And I think everyone thinks what we do is also clever. People go, oh, I wish I'd have done that, or I could have done that, or why didn't I do it? So just another little example of, when we decided to get into late night, here's Jeff who comes in one day and says, hey, why don't we call it fourth meal? And I'm like, why not? We all were like, why didn't we think of that? But then we're like, this is brilliant. And I think it's still called fourth meal today, right? So I think they're just a lot of examples of a brand that really has clarity around what it stands for. Will never be beige. And that doesn't mean you always get it right. Drive-through diet, a bit of a cluster on my behalf. But I think on the other side, there's so many things that we've talked about that I think, define why the brand is so iconic. And someone said it'll do something like $17 billion in sales in the US this year.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Greg. Always love chatting to you. You got so many interesting stories from your amazing career, and you're a bundle of energy. It's awesome. I really appreciate it. So much good stuff to learn out of it. And I keep referring back to your Red marketing book too. I think the frameworks and things in there are amazing, and we love applying all of that logic at Fable. So no, thank you for writing it. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Be well, and it's been wonderful to chat. And it's great to get down memory lane. So keep well, mate.
Awesome. Thanks, Greg. Cheers.